Oh, hey Chewy, how's it going? I'm just trying to cut those logs over there.
Have you ever tried a lightsaber?
Hey guys, welcome to the channel, Timber Time Outdoors. Today we're going to talk about an interesting topic with a couple of chainsaws that I own. You might be in the market for a new chainsaw, or maybe it's your first one, and you want to understand the difference between what people call a farm saw, or a saw you buy at a big box store. They range $250, $300 to something around $600, and this is what they call the pro level saw. And so I've had a little experience with these and some new experiences with these, and so I'm going to compare and contrast, kind of go over the pros and cons to what you get for your money. Obviously it's a lot of money to spend on a chainsaw, but I think you'll find at the end of this video there's definitely some advantages to spending that money. So we'll go through that. We're also going to do something fun. My daughter and I are going to do a little head-to-head competition. We call it Saw Wars 2020. We're going to take these saws and cut them side by side, cut through some logs. We'll do a time test, and I'll go through some of the pros and cons for each one. But just thanks for being with us. About 10 minutes worth of video here. Hopefully you're going to learn something about chainsaws, and maybe it'll make a difference in your buying decision. So thanks for being with us, and keep it in the timber.
Hey now, take a step outside and seize the day now.
Alright, before we can do Saw Wars 2020, we gotta do a little training for my daughter. So she's the new chainsaw Jedi here, and she's never run a saw. She's inside getting ready right now, but we're gonna go through some basics with her. Obviously wear all the protective gear and so forth. Today we have a special showdown here. My daughter is going to face off against me and these two saws. I've had this one for almost 10 years. It's been great. Got my new one here. I know it's not a fair fight, but give you kind of a good comparison between the two and what they can do. So good test for both saws. Very, very dry wood. It's the same log cut in half, so we got about 12 inches in diameter for each one. And what we're going to do is my daughter Allie's going to run the 261C, and I'm going to run the 445. Head to head, we'll do two cuts. So we'll cut two wafers off, and we'll see what happens. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. as you could see, we did a little test. We've got some data here, and let's just talk about what it means in terms of these saws and their performance. I want to talk a little bit about the tests that we did. So when you saw my daughter with the MS 261C, and I was using this one, and we basically tied. I think that comes down to skill. So this is obviously the first time my daughter's used a chainsaw. We did a little training, and then she just went after it with me. But I would attribute the slower cut with this saw to her skills. There might be some variation in the log, but I kind of doubt it. Basically, it was the log cut in half. And so in that first head-to-head test where you see we tie, I think most of that issue was she was kind of tipping the saw a little funny there. And so, you know, it was just kind of a fun thing. And so I thought it'd be appropriate to kind of switch saws and see what happened. And you can see with a little extra skill, just experience really, I was able to go through the log a lot faster. And then you saw the time test. And I think that's a good measure. So you saw this saw went through the log 2 slices about 31 seconds. This one went through the saw in about 25 seconds. And that might not seem like a lot. You might be saying, what's a few seconds? I'm just going to go with the $300 saw. And I think for somebody who is just cutting a few trees down from time to time, cleaning up their yard, this is totally a great saw. I used this saw for almost 10 years. In fact, I had 2 of them. I liked them so much. But if you're going to get into any kind of volume, you're going to use the saw a lot more. There are some serious advantages to these pro saws. So let's talk about some of the things I really like about this saw. It's kind of a small thing, but these gas caps and oil caps are really cool. The way they flip and twist, they just work a lot better than those. I've actually lost those in the forest. So kind of a great design that they have there. This thing has tremendous power for how light it is. And so you guys can look up the specs between the 2 saws. This one is lighter, but not much lighter. And this one has a heck of a lot more power. And so with that power, there's some obvious benefits. One is doing a plunge cut. So if you don't know what a plunge cut is, it's basically taking the saw and going directly into the log like this instead of cross-cutting it like that. And when you're felling a tree, sometimes that is a nice way to do it. When you plunge cut with this, it's like a hot knife through butter. If you try to do it with a saw like that, even with a sharp blade, it really labors. It doesn't want to do it. It wants to kind of kick on you. This one just plunges right in. So I really like that. And then that extra power, it seems to me, gives you a longer sharpening life. And I know that's not actually true, but I think what's actually happening there is it's got so much power that even with a dull blade, it will still cut at an efficiency rate. You still get high RPMs. So that power, it just makes the day go better because you don't have to sharpen so often. I find myself changing out blades here or sharpening that one quite often. So really like that extra horsepower from that regard. Another feature that's really great about this saw, might again seem like a small thing, but I am constantly tightening the chain on this one. No matter how hard I tighten it, it always wants to seem to go loose, and if it gets too loose on you, it can fall off and cause trouble. So this one has a better system for whatever reason. I don't know if that's just the Husqvarna versus Stihl, or if it's the way that they designed this cover, but I very rarely have to tighten this chain. And when you do, it's a very simple 2 bolts. There's a little screw down in there, and these bolts are retained, so you unscrew them and they don't fall off into the weeds like this one here. It's sometimes you can lose those screws, and so very good design from that regard. You know, it starts good. I will say it starts a little harder than that one does, and maybe that has to do with the bigger motor that's in it. Okay, so now some things that are a little bit annoying about this saw. Very minor, but with that power comes fuel consumption and oil consumption. So I find myself gassing this thing up a lot more than I did that one. So I guess that makes some sense, right? Bigger motor, it's going to just go through more fuel. But to be honest, that is the only thing that I that I don't like about the saw is it goes through more fuel and more oil. And so again, I would use that rule of thumb, how often you're going to use the saw. If you're not going to use it that often, these are great. And I'm not I'm not a buy a Stihl, buy a Husqvarna. I think the brands are great. Both have served me well. I plan to keep that one forever. I really like it. The reason I switched to Stihl, if you didn't see that in one of my other videos, I couldn't purchase a Husqvarna Pro level saw from a store. They have them online, but I could not find a store that had them. And the way that Stihl is distributed is a bunch of dealerships. We have 3 of them in my hometown here, and so it was just great. I could go in. They're all priced the same, but you get your hands on it, and it's just a lot easier to buy the Pro level saw in the Stihl brand. So that's why I switched. Oh no, great saws, a lot of fun. So hopefully that helped you out a little bit in your quest to buy a new chainsaw. All right, that's going to do it for Saw Wars 2020. Thanks for tuning in on the video. Hopefully you learned a few things about chainsaws. If you liked the video, please smash that like button. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. We're going to bring lots of stuff to you this summer. This is my little Ewok here, Hazel. Keep it in the timber, everybody. We'll see you next time.